moving to the right, and up. Or it can sometimes be down. The simplified way of saying this is that the slope equals the change that's happening in y over the change that's happening in x. So as we're going towards right, we're also going upwards. So one thing that you need to know, there are different types of slopes. So let's cover that for a moment and then we'll move forward. All right, as we saw before, I drew a line that was going upwards. Okay, so let's define what's happening here. Well, this is called positive slope, which means that we're going from left towards right, but the whole idea is that we're going up, from left to right, upwards. Okay, so let's go ahead and draw another one. And this will be our, what do you think it will be? It will be our negative slope. How would we define this? Think about like real life situation when we have a negative slope. Imagine maybe a water tank and we are emptying this water tank. Then as the time goes by, the water will decrease. And this negative slope is showing you the decrease in water levels. And so what happened? We were going from the left to right again, but this time we're going down. So left to right. But this time we're going down. And this is a very important situation where you always have to think about, and this is the key issue that students are always confused, which one is negative, which one is positive. All you need to do is think about it's going from left where? Down or up in order to be what type of slope. All right, let's take a look at this other slope in here. There's the third one and the fourth one. Let's take a look. And so here we call it a zero slope because, well, guess what? There's no change happening here. So no change. And we call this a zero slope. So let's imagine what's happening here. Let's say I am staying at my friend's house and I'm not going anywhere, and I'm stationary in one place as the time goes by. And so therefore, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not doing anything else. So that shows that no change in happening. You can also imagine, let's say if I was given $20 in my account and I'm not putting any money or I'm not getting any other allowance, I still have $20 as the weeks go by or days go by. That is my zero slope. There's one last one, which will be an undefined slope. Truly, this is not a slope. It's a straight line, straight vertical line. You can think of it as an elevator, right? Going up and down. So this slope we call undefined. All right, so let's write some examples of the slope. What does it mean when we're talking about this? We talked about that the slope is a change when it's a vertical and horizontal line. So there's a relationship between them. Let's go ahead and write that down. So the change is in rise, which is our vertical change, and then in run, which is our horizontal change. And this could be right, and then this could be up or down. Okay, so let's see what happens when we have a positive slope. What would that look like? So positive slope would be, let's say, 3/4. So as we're going up 3, we're going to the side 4. Okay, so negative will be looking like negative 3/4. As you can see, it's showing us that this line is going to go down. So down and towards right. All right, let's talk about the vertical and horizontal lines. For zero slope, you might see something like this. Either it's going to say 0 over a number, or it's just going to say 0, which is 0 divided by 2. It's more simplified. And undefined will look like 2 over 0, which is impossible to do. We cannot divide 2 with when we have nothing. And so that will be undefined slope. Next video, we're going to discuss how to find the slope from a graph, from a point, and from an equation. If this video helped you, please like and subscribe. And remember, learning math takes patience, practice, and perseverance. See you on the next one. Hi, welcome back to Teaching Math. Today we're going to discuss how to find the slope from a graph. Okay, so we know that the slope is showing the change in y, which is our vertical change, up or down, and divided by change in x, which is left to right. Okay, we also know that the slope, we can define it as rise, right? Changing vertical change, over run, which will be the horizontal change. Again, these are x and y values. And so the easiest thing to do is really draw out the change that's happening vertically and horizontally and write those numbers down. So let's go ahead and do that. I want to also mention that we write the slope and we're given a variable on it, which is m. So let's go ahead, instead of writing slope, let's say m equals, and find the first line in here. I'm going to change my color so you can clearly see what we're doing. And so let's go ahead and find, how do you find the slope when you have a line? So what you're doing here is finding 2 points on the line, 2 closest points. You can still find the longest points, and I will show you how. But when you're looking for the slope, you're finding 2 closest points. They're going through whole numbers. As you can see, this line matches with 3, and then this one is matching with 6. So they're going through whole numbers. And remember, the slope is constant. So let's take a look at what that means. So the change is happening. A rise is 1, as you can see, and then run is 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so the vertical change is 1, and then horizontal change is 3. So let's go ahead and write that down. Our vertical change, which was rise, is 1, and then our horizontal change was 3. And that will be run. The next thing we have to think about is this a positive or negative slope? Think about it this way. We always start from the left. So for positive slopes, we go from the left, right? From the left side, right here, towards right. And then we have to think about, is it going upwards or is it going downwards? As you can see, this one is going from left towards up. So this will be a positive slope. I don't have to do anything else. Just write those things down. But I want to mention here, this is what's happening. Could I have chosen different points? So let's erase that, or just leave it there. I'll choose a different color. Could I have chosen these 2 points and got the same answer? Let's take a look. So here we have 1 and 2 vertical change. So let's go ahead and write that down. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And so now we have horizontal change, that is 6. So let's go ahead and write that down. We had 2 over 6. And so the next thing you have to think about, well, are those 2 slopes equal to each other? And the answer is yes, because if I simplify 2 over 6, right, that will be dividing both by 2, I will still have 1 over 3. So it really doesn't matter which 2 points you choose. The reason I said the closest points, because it just makes it easier for you to get the answer right away, rather than moving to another step and simplifying your answer. All right, so let's take a look at another example. As I mentioned before, we have to choose 2 closest points. Now over here, sometimes in your homework as well, you will see those points that are further away from each other. We can start like, let's say you started with the points that are further away. And now again, what we're doing is we're going to try and find the rise and the run. That means vertical and horizontal change. So let's go ahead and start with the rise. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, okay? And then the run will be 1, 2. So let's go ahead and write 4 and 2 and put this over here. So m equals 4 over 2. As you can see clearly here, this is not simplified. So to simplify it, we're clearly going to divide 4 divided by 2, and that will equal 2. So our slope equals 2, or you can say 2 over 1, but really it's 2. So the next thing we have to think about, is this a negative or positive slope? Remember we talked about when it's positive slope, we're going from left to up, right? Towards right and up. And now here again, we're starting from the left, right? But in this time we're going down. So as you can see, we're going towards right, but we're also going down. So this makes it a negative slope. So let's go ahead and write that, put the negative sign right in front of our slope. And this is where students go and make an error by not really identifying if this is a negative or positive slope. Let's try another. Okay, this slope baffles a lot of students. I've seen students going and doing this, trying to find some kind of slope. But when you're looking at this and trying to connect 2 points, well, your 2 points could be, I'm going to change my color so you can clearly see, anything really closer to each other. And what does this mean? Are we going upwards to connect those 2 points? No, we're not. So if we're not going up, that means we're going 0 up, right? And then we can go 1 to the side, which will be in the bottom. So our change, basically there's no changes happening, right? Vertically 0 change, but we're still going towards right. And this will be simplified. 0 divided by 1 will equal 0. So this slope is 0, and there's no negative or positive in here. What does this mean in real life? For instance, if you're standing somewhere and not moving and not going anywhere as the time passes, that will be 0 slope because you didn't go anywhere, you didn't cover any miles or whatsoever. So our x-axis will show the time that you were there, and then y-axis the location and how far you're going and coming. Okay, so let's take a look at one more. Okay, and here's another. This confuses a lot of students as well. And let's take a look at why. Okay, so again, we're looking at, is there any change happening vertically? Yes. So let's choose 2 points first. Okay, so vertically, we're going up. So I'm going to say m equals 1, going up. But are you going towards right or side? No, you're not going anywhere. That is 0. So we're not moving towards right, 0. And we call this 1 divided by 0. It's not a thing. If you put it in your calculator, it will give you an error because we cannot divide 1 into no groups, basically. That's what we're trying to say. So this one will be undefined. Okay, and that's how you find a slope from the graph. So if you like this video, like and subscribe for our next lesson, which will be all about finding the slope from 2 points. Remember, learning math takes patience, practice, and perseverance. See you on the next one. Welcome back to Teaching Math. Today we're going to learn how to find a slope from equation and from 2 points. Let's get started with our first example. Okay, so this is the easiest way to find what is slope. If you remember from a y-intercept form equation, mx, y equals mx plus b, here we have two things. M is showing the slope, right? And then b is showing your y-intercept. Here you might think that you need to draw a graph, but you don't need to. So all you need to do is correspond where is your m in this equation. As you clearly can see here, m is right over here, and then b is right over here. So therefore, this is your m, and this is your b. So this is very easy. How do I know that's m? Because m is right next to x. X is showing the quantity, right? So you remember. So right there, that's how I know that this is has a coefficient, which is my slope. So my slope in here will be 2. Here's another example. Y equals negative 4x minus 1. Well, same idea here. What number is next to x? What number has a coefficient? Negative 4. So here's our slope. So our slope is negative 4. So this is a negative slope. And another equation that could really puzzle someone if we had 3x in here and no b. So just because we don't have a b, that doesn't mean there is no b. B is 0. And so therefore our slope in here will be 3. Here's another example. Y equals 1 over 2, x plus 7. Again, fractions are common. Don't panic. Our slope is, you're looking at where's x, and that should be the number next to the x, mx. So 1 over 2. Here's where things get more confusing when it's not written in a y equals mx plus b form, which is y-intercept form. What do we do then? So let me give you an example. 3y equals 6x minus 9. Okay, so since it's not written in a y-intercept form, we can rewrite it in a y-intercept form. So to do that, we have to solve for y. And so again, we're trying to isolate y, so it will look y equals mx plus b. So to isolate y, as you can see, y is multiplied by 3. And to do the opposite of that, we have to divide everything by 3. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. So then y will equal 2x minus 3. Okay, and from here we can write that the slope is 2. Here's one more example just to make sure they understand this. Again, this is not written in a y-intercept form. What if we had negative 2x, right, plus 2y equals 6? What if we have written like this? So from here, we're going to, can we write this in a y-intercept form? Because as you will notice that was the easiest way for us to find the slope. In here, people might confuse and say, hey, this is the slope because it's right next to the x, but we have to work through this. We have to solve for y in order to find the correct answer. So let's go ahead and do that. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to move the x to the other side by addition. So I'm going to add 2x to both sides. I'm going to rewrite my equation. 2y equals 2x plus 6. Remember, it's plus 6 because 6 is a positive number. Okay, so from here, we can't stop because we still have the y that's multiplied by 2. So therefore, we're going to do the opposite of multiplication, which will be division. We're going to divide everything by 2. And so here we'll have y, and then 2 divided by 2 equals 1. 1 times x equals x. So therefore, we'll have x plus 6 divided by 2 equals 3. And Here's what's confusing. So what is slope in here, you may ask? Well, the slope here is 1, or another way you can say is 1 up and 1 to the right, 1 over 1. And so when you are facing this situation, please remember that the x is multiplied by 1x. There's only 1x in there. So 1 times x is x. So therefore, we do not write the 1 in there. And this was confusing for the students because when they don't see that 1 in there, they're more confused about, well, what is the slope? Now let's find the slope from 2 points. So let's say we have the 2 points, right? They are written like this. 1, comma 2, and 5, comma 6. Okay, so we have these 2 points and they're asking you to find the slope. So if it was on a graph, we could put these points on the graph and be able to go rise up however many points to reach to the next point, and then go to the right to reach the next point. So what I want you to know over here is this, that when we're talking about 2 points, x and y, we're talking about x and y, and then that will be x1, y1, right? Because we're just going to name this as x1 and y1. And then this one will be x2 and y2. Well, because we have 2 of them, and that's how we're going to count. So I'm going to take that away. And so how do we do this? Well, there is a formula which is slope formula. I'm going to write slope equals y2 minus y1, so y's subtracted, and then divided by x2 minus x1. This is the same thing as rise over run, if you remember from a previous video. If you didn't watch the how to find the slope from a graph, please make sure you watch that one. So those are 2 of the same things that we're writing, but now we have 2 points and we don't want to graph things. All right, so let's go ahead and fill out this information. Okay, so I'm going to highlight my y's, and then I'm going to highlight my x's so I can actually clearly see. You can really highlight your information to make it more accessible, or write in the bottom x1, y1, x2, y2. That'll be much easier for you to figure this out. Okay, so I'm going to go to my y2, which is right over here, 6. So I'm going to say slope, and another way of slope is m, right? Remember that? So let's go ahead and say y2, which is 6, minus, where's my y1? Minus 2. And then we're going to divide, and then we're going to go to our x2, which will be 5, minus 1. Okay, so the only thing that do here is try and figure out what it is. All right, 6 minus 2 will equal, so I'm going to rewrite m over here again. 6 minus 2 is 4 over 5 minus 1 is 4. So 4 over 4. Now we're going to divide or simplify. That's what we're doing here. Okay, so 4 divided by 4 equals 1. So my slope, let's go ahead and write in here, slope equals 1, and another way we can say that, m is 1. And if you have to graph it, that will be 1 over 1. Let's take a look at another example. So we have 2 and -7. And then we have 4 and 3. Okay, so let's take a look how that works out. Again, I'm going to go in there and mention what is my x1 and y1. x1 is right here, and then y1 is right there, and then x2, and then y2. I'm going to remind myself the equation for the slope is y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that now. So my y2 is 3 minus -7. X2 is 4 minus 2. Okay, here's a very interesting place where students get confused. Why did I not write 3 minus 7? Because I have -7, not just 7, but -7. So I do need to write that. I want to mention that when you're writing this, make sure to rewrite it again. So I'm going to rewrite that again, saying that 3, well, 2 negatives equals positive plus 7, right? And divide by 4 minus 2. So just make sure that you're doing this for yourself to clearly see what's happening here. And this is where it could be confusing and you will make an error. So let's go ahead and write what is 3 plus 7. 3 plus 7 equals 10, and then 4 minus 2 equals 2. So we have 10 divided by 2, or simplified, will be 5/1 or 5. Okay, and that is our slope. Okay, so thank you for watching. Here are a few examples that you can do on your own, and pause the video and come back and see the answers. Thank you for watching Teaching Math, and please subscribe for our next video, which will be all about writing linear equations using slope. Welcome back to Teaching Math. Today we're going to explore how to graph linear equations using slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. Whenever you see an equation like this, y equals mx plus b, you should immediately think, I already have all the information I need to graph. This equation tells me two things: where the line starts, which is our b, and how the line moves, which is our slope, m. Let me give you our first example. First, I want to slow down and look at the structure. The number in front of x is 2, which is our slope. This will tell me how to move. And the number by itself is my y-intercept. So here m equals 2 and b equals 3. Now let's graph it step by step, no shortcuts. Well, our step 1 should be a starting point. So that means we're going to find b. B is the y-intercept. That's where the line crosses the y-axis. Here, our b is the number that is by itself. So let's go ahead and write that. B equals 3. That means when x is 0, y is 3. Let's go ahead and write it as a point. So x should be 0 and y should be 3. I'm going to write x and y in here just for you to know. Okay, let's go ahead and plot that point. So x is 0 and y is 3. This is where the line begins. Every line in a slope-intercept form starts at the y-intercept. This means it's a point where it's crossing the y-axis. Our step 2 is using the slope. Our slope is m, which is 2. So really it means 2 over 1. We have to write it as a fraction. That means go up 2 and write 1. So we already have put the first point on the graph. So we're going to start at y-intercept. We're going to go up 2 and write 1. And notice that this is a positive slope. This is y. I'm going up and then right. Let's go ahead and do that. We're going to go up to 1, 2, and then 1 to the side. Do that again. Since this is a rate of change, it's going to happen over and over. Once you have 2 or 3 points on the graph, you can stop there and draw your line. And this is the graph for y equals 2x plus 3. Let's talk about what just happened, because this part is powerful. The equation gave me the starting point, which was my y-intercept, b. The slope told me how to move. That's all graphing really is. Let's move on to our next example. Now, this equation has a negative slope. First, find b, which will be the number by itself. B equals 4, which is a point where x is 0 and y is 4. Let's plot that point on a graph. Now let's take a look at the slope. Slope is -1. You may ask, there's no 1 in there, but there's 1x. We usually do not 1 in front of the x, so it is -1. Let's write it as a fraction. -1/1, which means we're going to go down 1 and right 1. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going down 1 and right 1. Down 1 and right 1. I'm going to make this larger. Down 1 and right 1. And put your points there. Okay, we're ready to draw our line. So here it is. Wherever the slope is negative, we're going to go down to the right. Whenever the slope is positive, we're going to go up to the right. And that will help you get it right every single time. Now let's do a fraction, because this is where students usually hesitate. Y equals 1/3x minus 2. First, find b. Our b is -2, which means this is a point where x is 0 and y is -2. Let's plot that point. -2 will be in the bottom. Here we go. Next, let's write our slope. Our slope is 1/3. If you remember, we were converting a whole number into a fraction, but this is a fraction already. We don't have to do anything else. We just know that this tells us go upwards because it's a positive slope, 1, and then to the right, 3. Let's go ahead and do that. We're going to start at our y-intercept. As usual, we're going to go up 1 and 1, 2, 3 to the side and put our point. Up 1 and 1, 2, 3 to the side. And then we can do that again. And I think we're ready to draw our line. As you can see, this is a positive slope, and it is the line for y equals 1/3 minus 2. All right, as you can see, fractions are not bad. That's just one less step we had to do. I'm going to give you a simple checklist that works every single time. You can screenshot this or copy it in your notebook. Well, the first things first, that what we did is find a b and plot it. Remember, this is a point where x is 0. Write the slope. So I'm going to write this over here so you can see. Write the slope as a fraction. So if we had 2, we're going to write 2/1. And if it's fraction, leave it alone. Start at b. That is the point. Move up or down, then right. So if it's a negative slope, we're going to go down, right? If it's a positive slope, we're going to go up and to the right. And then you're ready to draw a line after you have a few points on the graph. Let's do a quick check so you can do this on your own. So let me give you an example. Y equals 3x minus 1. So pause the video here and try it on your own. Okay, so the first thing that you have to do is find the b and write the slope as a fraction. So the b is -1, and that means it's 0 and -1. We can plot that point on the graph. Then we're going to find our slope, which will be 3. And we're going to write this as a fraction. That means it's a positive. We're going to go up 3 and right 1. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to go up 3, 1, 2, 3. and 1 to the side. Can do that again, 1, 2, and 3, and 1 to the side. I think we have enough points to draw the line. So there you have it. Hope you got this one right. So graphing a slope-intercept form is not about memorizing tricks, it's about reading the equation. The equation tells you where to start and how to move. In the next video, we'll graph equations that are not already in this form and learn how to rewrite in a y-intercept form. That's when the things get really powerful. If you learned something new, please subscribe to the channel and like the video. And remember, learning math takes patience, practice, and perseverance. See you on the next one. Hello and welcome to Teaching Math. Today we're going to graph linear equations using standard form. ax plus by equals c. As you can see over here, we do not have the y-intercept or the slope in order to graph. So we're going to use another method. Now there's two methods to do this. I can rewrite this equation as a y-intercept form and use the slope and y-intercept to graph it, or I can use x-intercept and y-intercept to graph it. In this video, we're going to use the second method, finding the x-intercept and y-intercept to graph the equation. Question for you, I want you to think about it. What happens when x is 0 and what happens when y is 0? We're talking about points on the graph. The answer to those two questions, what happens when x is 0 and what happens when y is 0, will give me the two necessary points in order for me to graph. And all I need is 2 points to graph an equation. So let's get started. Let's say that x is 0. So x is 0. 2 times 0 plus y equals 6. Well, 2 times 0 equals 0. 0 plus y equals y. Y equals 6. So let's go ahead and write that point. When x is 0, y is 6. Let's go ahead and plot that point. X is 0 and y is 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Here's our first point. So x is 0, y is 6. That is our first point. Now let's go ahead and make the y 0. So 2x plus 0 equals 6. Well, 2x plus 0 will equal 2x. So 2x equals 6. Now we divide both sides by 2. X equals 3. All right, so when y is 0, x is 3. Let's go ahead and plot that point. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, now it's time to draw the line. Let's pause here and think about it. Usually when the equation is written in a y-intercept form, you really need to use the slope and the y-intercept in order to graph. But when it's written in a standard form, you do not need the slope. All you need is y-intercept and x-intercept. So when you set the x to 0, you will be able to find the y-intercept. And if you set the y 0, you will be able to find the x-intercept. Let's do another example. All right, first things first, let x be 0. So 3 times 0 plus 2y equals 12. 3 times 0 is 0 plus 2y is 2y equals 12. Now let's go ahead and divide 2, doing inverse operation. Y equals 6. Okay, let's go ahead and write that point. So when x is 0, y is 6. So our point will be x is 0, y is 6. That is our first point. Let's go ahead and plot it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That is our first point for. Now let y equal 0. Okay, so instead of writing 3x plus 2, instead of writing y, I'm going to say 2 times 0 equals 12. So 3x plus 0 equals 3x. Let's go ahead and write 12 and then divide both sides by 3. So x equals 4. Okay, let's go ahead and plot that point. So if y is 0, x is 4, and the point will be 4 and y 0. We're still looking for x is 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, draw our line. Just connecting those 2 points. All right, let's try another example where intercepts are negative. All right, let's set the x as 0. 0 minus y equals 2. So negative y equals 2. Let's go ahead and divide both sides by negative 1. So y equals negative 2. So when x is 0, y is negative 2. And that point will be 0, comma, negative 2. Let's go ahead and plot that point. So 0, x is 0, and y is negative 2. So let's go ahead 1, 2, and that's where our point is. Okay, let's set the y as 0. X minus 0 equals 2. X minus 0 equals x. X equals 2. So that means x is 2. So this point will be x is 2 and y is 0. Let's go ahead and plot that point. X is 2 and y is 0. Here it is. And there you have it. And you can actually find the slope from here by finding another point or connecting those 2 points. See? 1 over. Summarize what we did. Step 1, we've set the x as 0 to find y. And then we plotted the y-intercept. Step 2, we set the y as 0 and to find x and plot x-intercept. And then step 3, draw a line to connect 2 points. As you can see, using standard form is not harder or easier than using the y-intercept form, and they just use 2 different methods. One is using y-intercept form and the slope, and then the other one is using 2 intercepts, x and y. Regardless of which method you use, you will end up with the same line because equation is the same. If you like this video, please leave a comment and subscribe to Teaching Math. And remember, learning math takes patience, practice, and perseverance. See you on the next one. Hello and welcome to Teaching Math. Today we're going to learn how to write linear equations from a table, which is kind of the same thing as writing it from 2 points. Let's take a look at our first example. Here's our first example, but let's make sure that we know the format that we're going to use for this equation. So for linear equation, we're going to use the y-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. And this means that we're going to need to know the slope, which is the same thing as m, and we're going to need to know the y-intercept, and that is the same thing as b. So those are the 2 things that we're looking for. So I'm going to highlight this over here so you can clearly see. Those are the 2 things that we're looking for. First things first, we need to find the slope. So there's 2 ways to do that. One, using the slope equation, which will be m equals y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. And this is the most easiest and less confusing way to do it. Or the other way, you're going to have to just use your table and subtract y's from y's and x's from x's. Well, to do that, here's what we're going to do. So we have 2, and you can choose any 2 points. It doesn't matter which one. I always start from the bottom. Just stick to one way that you're doing this and keep it the same way, right? So we're going to have to do this, subtract both of this. So this means 2 minus negative 1, which is the same thing as saying 2 plus 1. And that will equal 3. Let's go ahead and write that. Those are the y's at the top. And then let's do the same thing for the x's. So we're going to have 1 minus 0, and that will equal 1. So our slope here is 3 over 1, which is the same thing as 3. It was that easy. So let's try and do this the same thing with an equation. So we're going to have y1 and y2. So what I tell my students is to write what would be your y2. I'm going to use a different color so it won't confuse you. So this will be your y2, and this will be your y1. This will be your x2, and this will be your x1. Now that you have that down, you can clearly see what you're doing here. Let's do the right color, and let's go ahead and do that. So now we have y2, which is -4, minus -7. That's my y1. Divide by -1 minus -2. Now we have to rewrite this again because we have two negatives that will equal positive. So -4 plus 7 and -1 plus 2. And you can clearly see here that -4 plus 7 will equal 3. -1 plus 2 will equal 1. And we have the same answer. Now, which one you would choose to do, it's really up to you. But for me, it's the most important thing is organizing your information. Sometimes when the students use the table to find the slope, it becomes much more confusing. So you make that decision and then go with it. Okay, so now that we found the slope, we need to find our y-intercept. Okay, remember, y-intercept is a point where the line is crossing the y-axis. So I'm going to show you this visually so you can see. So when I draw a line in here, that is the point. And that point could be where x is 0, as you can see. And then let's pretend y is 2. So we're looking for a point in this table where it's showing us x is 0, and that will be our y-intercept. So let's go ahead and look at it in here, and you can clearly see that right over here, that is our y-intercept. That would be the point that the line will cross the y-axis. And if I draw that out, and I'm going to do that right now for you on a graph. Okay, so you will clearly see. So if I think about it, 0 and 1, that will be the point right over here. So as you can see, that is the point when the line will be crossing the y-axis. Okay, so let's go ahead and write those two information in there and then write our equation. So we learned that our slope is 3. So let's go ahead and write that. Slope is 3. And our y-intercept is -1. Okay. Now we're ready for our equation. So let's move this just a bit higher. Remember, we're just substituting the m and the y-intercept, which will be the b. So we're going to rewrite this y equals. So instead of writing m, we're going to write 3x. And then this y-intercept is -1 minus 1. And that would be our equation. Okay, so let's take a look at another example where we do not have the y-intercept in the table. So let's take a look at this example. Again, we want to look for our m and our b. So m will be our slope, and then b will be our y-intercept in order to write this equation. We start with our slope. What is slope? Okay, again, we can use y2 minus y1 equation, x2 minus x1, or just use the graph. So I'm going to do both again just to show you how it's done. So let's use the graph in here, and let's go ahead and subtract 13 minus 11. Notice I always start from the bottom, and that is the method that I'm going to keep on using. I don't change things around. I don't start from the middle, but it really does not matter because it will still get the same answer. Okay, so 13 minus 11 equals 2, and then we have 4 minus 3 equals 1. Let's go ahead and write that. Okay. 4 minus 3 equals 1. Okay, so on this side we have 1. And again, I can do the same thing. 11 minus 9 equals 3, and then 3 minus 2 will equal 1 again. So it will be the same thing. Let's take a look how we're going to do this using the slope equation. So let's go ahead and erase this. Okay, so for this method, again, I'm going to label everything y2, y1, x2, x1. And labeling really helps me organize the information that I'm going to use. And so let's go ahead and do that. M equals, my y2 is 9, y1 is 7, and then x2 is 2, and then x1 is 1. And you can clearly see that M equals well, 9 minus 7 equals 2. 2 minus 1 equals 1. So our slope is 2. Now let's find the y-intercept. And I'm going to show you two ways, and you can decide which one is better for you to do it and which one you understand better. One will be we have to extend our table. So I'm going to rewrite the table in here so I can extend it. So this is my x and y. And so I'm going to start over here and write 1 and 7 and then 2 and 9. That's all I need to write. Because I'm extending and I want the x to be 0, that's where I'm going. So, okay, so let's go ahead and again, we remember here that we had to subtract 2, right? Each time we go upwards, we were subtracting 2. And then in here, each time we were going upwards, we were subtracting 1, right? As you can see, 2 minus 1. So, okay, let's go ahead and subtract 2 from 7, and therefore we will have 5. And then let's go ahead and subtract 1 from 1, and we will have 0. And there you have it. We found our y-intercept. The x is 0. That's where we want it. And then y is 5. Okay, so that is our y-intercept. Again, I'm going to show you visually how that looks. So if we have a graph, let's pretend that that is the point that we're talking about, and that is our y-intercept. Let's go ahead and write that our y-intercept is 5. Let me show you another way to do this. It is a longer way to do it, but we only use it when we're not so close and we extending the table, it's more confusing for you. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, one thing I want to do here is to find a y-intercept, I need few things. I need my x, I need a point. To find my y-intercept, this is what I need. I need a point, and I need a slope. There's triangles here. So we're going to write 1, and then run. I'm going to write 1 in here. Run 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so the run is 4. So our slope is 1, rise, over run, 4. And that's it. And let's take a look at how we're going to write this equation. So to write the equation, all we need to do is plug in the m. I'm going to highlight our m, right? And plug in the b. Okay, so instead of writing m, I'm going to write in this equation y equals 1 over 4 x, and then plus 1 instead of writing b. Now, one other thing that you have to look at it very carefully after you write your equation, you need to decide, is this a positive slope or a negative slope? Remember, when it is a positive slope, the line will go from left upwards. When it is a negative slope, the line will go from left downwards. So as you can see, going from left up is a positive slope. I have written positive slope over here. Let's take a look at another example. All right, let's take a look at this example. Again, we have to make sure that we're writing our equation as y equals mx plus b. We need our m, which is our slope, and